Before we get started with each part of the exam and how to do it, let's look at a general overview, a summary of the exam so that you know exactly what to expect. Listen carefully to all of the information because there are some questions for you to answer below this video. If you like, you can try to answer the questions first to see what you already know about the exam, and then watch the video to check. So, how many parts are there in the B2 first exam? For example, speaking is one part. Do you know how many parts there are in total? And how long is it? How much time does it take altogether? Well, there are 4 parts. There's the reading and use of English, the writing, the listening, and the speaking. Now, to pass the B2 first exam, you need 60% or more in total. So that means if you get a bad score in the writing, for example, you can still pass the exam. But you need to get a very good score in other parts of the exam. The reading and use of English is worth 40% of the total number of marks. The writing is 20%, the listening is 20%, and the speaking also represents 20%. The exam takes about 3.5 hours to complete. So let's look at the individual parts in a little bit of detail. The reading and use of English paper takes 1 hour and 15 minutes, and there are 7 separate tasks that you have to do. Now that's not much time, is it? And this is possibly one of the most difficult parts of the exam for timing. And you decide how to divide your time and when you move from one task to the next. So timing is very important, and we'll practice this in the reading and use of English section of this course. In this part of the exam, there are 4 short texts based on grammar and vocabulary, and 3 longer tests to test your reading comprehension skills. You could begin with part 7, the longer reading, and work backwards to part 1. I'll explain more when we study the reading and use of English paper in detail. Moving on to the writing. How long is the writing paper? And how many writings do you have to do? Well, the writing paper lasts for 1 hour and 20 minutes in total. And if you're not used to writing in English or in your language, this part of the exam can be tricky. You're not allowed to use a dictionary, and there is no spell check on the computer-based exam. You need to write between 140 and 190 words in 1 hour and 20 minutes. That's 40 minutes for each task, because there are 2 tasks. That gives you 5 minutes to plan your writing, 30 minutes to write, and 5 minutes to check at the end. Part 1 is always an essay, and it's compulsory. You have no choice. You must write an essay. In part 2, you do have a choice, and these are the choices. You can write possibly an email or a letter. That could be formal, that could be informal, an article, a review, or a report. So there are 5 choices that could be in part 2, and you'll learn how to write all of these exam tasks in this course. Now, how long is the listening part of the exam? And how many parts are there? How many times do you hear each listening? The listening is 40 minutes and you have 4 different listening tasks to do. You hear each listening twice, always. So how is your listening in English? Do you listen to English regularly at the moment? Look, if you want to improve your grammar and vocabulary, you have to study. To improve your writing, you need to learn linking words, practice punctuation, spelling, etc. But it's relatively easy to improve your listening. You just need to listen. You need to practice listening. Now you will learn some exam technique and listening strategies in this course, but you need to practice a lot before the exam. Now, of course, you need to do exam listening practice, but also listen to songs, listen to news in English, films, podcasts, any TV series that you enjoy, listen to those in English, and you'll be surprised how quickly you'll improve if you listen regularly. So start today, and if you need a recommendation to begin, you can listen to our English podcast at inglespodcast.com. Now, how long is the speaking test and how many parts are there? And how many people participate in the speaking test? The speaking. Many people get nervous when they have to speak, but it doesn't have to be difficult. It lasts for 14 minutes and there are 4 parts, 4 sections to the speaking, and there are 3 participants in the speaking test. 2 candidates and 1 examiner. So that's briefly what the B2 first exam looks like. Now let's see what you remember. Take the quiz for this lesson and check your answers when you've finished. In the supplementary material, you will also see a PDF called B2 First Exam Information. Read this text and use it as a reference if you have any doubts about the exam or if you are wondering exactly what you have to do in each part. In the next lesson, we'll look at part 1 of the reading and use of English exam. What is the task in part 1 of the reading and use of English? How do you do it? And how much time should you give to this part of the reading and use of English? You'll find out in the next video.